So you welcome once again to CN Professional Institute. In the first video, we looked at the definition of interest, and then we looked at the types of interest: simple interest, compound interest. And then we started solving questions on what simple interest. All right. So let's finish simple interest. We have 2 or 3 more questions to go. Then we look at compound interest, right? So let's continue and solve more questions on simple interest. So let's continue with example 4. Let's go to example 4. So question 4. Question 4 says a person borrows 60,000 at 8%. At the end of the loan, he repays the loan in full with a cash transfer of 88,800 Ghana cedis. What was the duration of the loan? The person borrows 60,000 at 8%. At the end of the loan, he repays the loan in full with a cash transfer of 88,800 Ghana cedis. What was the duration of the loan? So here, what are you finding? Duration of the loan means you are finding what? Time. Duration. Time. All right. You are finding time. Now, so this is how we are going to go about this. So this is how we are going to go about this. Now we are finding time. But if you remember, I told you something that interest is also equal to the difference between the principal borrowed, okay, and then the amount repayable or the amount paid to wherever you took the loan. We said if you borrow 20,000 from the bank or from anywhere, and at the end you paid, let's say at the end interest is 5,000. Okay, you have to pay 25,000 to wherever you took the loan, let's say a bank. Okay, so the amount you have to repay back is equal to the principal plus the interest. The same thing, the person borrowed what 60,000 here, but at the end he repaid the loan and the interest is what 88,800. So can you see can you see you can get the interest here? I hope you're following. So the interest here will be what? The 88,800 minus what? The 60,000. Now look at it. We said amount repayable is equal to principal plus what? Interest. So you see the amount that is payable or is repaid is what? 88,000 here. Can you see 88,800 is equal to principal we know, which is what? 60,000 plus what? We don't know the interest, right? So you see that if you make interest the subject, interest will be what? The 88,800 minus what? The 60,000. Can you see? And that will give us what? 28,800. So you see, this is the interest. So you see, the question did not give us the interest directly, but we can find our own interest. Don't forget the difference between the money you borrow from the bank or wherever you borrow the money and the amount you are repaying them is the interest. Because had it not been interest, you'd have paid the same amount back to them. You borrow 60,000, you'd have paid 60,000 had it not been interest. But because we charge interest, you have to add the interest to the principal. So the difference between the amount you are repaying and the amount you borrowed is the interest. So here we got our interest to be 28,800. Now, duration. How do you find duration of the loan? So just go to your formula. We said interest is equal to principal, rate, and then time. That's a simple interest. So we have our interest here, which is what? 28,800 is equal to the principal is what? 60,000. Which is in the question. This is the amount borrowed, 60,000 borrowed. Rate is what? 8%. So I write 0.08 because I'm not using divided by 100. Okay. Then times the duration, which is the time, which we don't know. Right. So 28,800 is equal to then 60,000 times 0.08. Okay. 60,000 times 0.08. So that will give us, so you see that will give us 4,800. times what? The T. Okay, so 28,800 is equal to 4,800 T. So how do you get T? You divide here by 4,800, divide by 4,800. Your T will be equal to your 28,800 divided by what? 4,800. See, and I'm getting T to be what? 6, exactly 6. All right, so I'm getting what? 6%. I'm getting, hey, sorry, it's not 6%, sorry. Here we are calculating for, we are calculating for T. Okay, so sorry. So it's supposed to be what? 6 years. All right. So can you see how we go about this question? It's very simple. Just know that interest is not given to us, but we know the difference between the amount that we have to pay back. That's the 88,800, and then the 6,000 interest, okay, which is 28,800. Then we just set up a formula: interest is equal to principal rate time, and then we make T the subject. That's all. So we have our 6 years. Okay. Let's look at another example. So you can verify your answer. Okay, after getting 6 years, calculate the interest and see if you get the 28,800. You can verify that. Okay, so if you want to verify your answer and see if you're right, you can do this way. Principal is, so multiply 60,000, which is the principal. Rate is 8%, 0.08 times 6 years, and see if you get the 28,800. You get it. So 60,000 multiply 60,000 times 0.08 times 6 years. You should get the 20,800. All right. Now let's continue. Let's look at this example too. It says a person invests 90,000 for 6 years. At the end of the investment, she receives a cash transfer of 122,400 cedis in full and final settlement of the investment. What was the interest rate on the investment? So here we invested, we didn't borrow, but we rather invested. So the person invested 90,000, and you see at the end she receives what? 122,400. So you see, you should know the difference between the amount that the person invested, the 90,000, and then the 122,400 is the interest. All right, because you took or invested 90,000 somewhere, and at the end you are getting 122,400. So the difference is the interest. So this is similar to what we just solved. Okay, this is similar to what we just solved. So you realize that here your interest will be equal to 122,400, okay, minus 90,000. The difference between 122,400 and 90,000, which is 32,400. This is the interest. Okay, so the general rule is that you will not always be asked to find interest. You will not always be asked to find interest. Sometimes some other stuff could be missing and you be asked to find. So now we have our interest. You know that we have the interest. This is, if you look at the comments, this is what was what? The interest rate. So you are finding the interest rate. You are finding R. So you can just set up your equation. Interest is equal to principal rate time over 100. Let me use the over 100 here. It's the same thing, okay? I told you can decide not to use the over 100 or over 100. So my interest, what's the interest in the question? Or the interest we just got. So the interest we just got is 32,400. Is equal to the principal is 90,000 times the rate, which we don't know, R, times the T. T is what? 6 years. Then we divide by 100. You get the same answer. Okay. Okay. If you do it this way, then what it means is that you are going to get your answer straight for that 6%. Or sorry, you are going to get your answer straightforward as like a whole number. Okay, but if you don't divide by that 100, you'll be getting a decimal, which you can equally convert to the whole number. It doesn't matter. Okay. So if I do cross multiplication, then 32,400 by 100 will give me 3. Let me wipe this so I have a bit of space. So this will give me 3240000. Okay, then it's equal to 90,000 times R times 6. So 90,000 by 6. So 3240123 is equal to 90,000 by 6 is giving me 540,000 times R. So to get R, I'll divide 3240123 divided by 54,000, and then my R is equal to 6. Are you following? So this is what percent straightforward. If you decide not to divide and you just want to use interest is equal to what? Principal rate time, then in that case, you are going to have 32,400 is equal to the principal is what? 90,000 times the rate, which we don't know, times time. So rate times what? Time is what? 6. Okay. So in this case, what we're going to do is that we're going to have 400 32,400. So let me wipe this line here and bring it a bit close here. So you're going to have 32,400 here is equal to then 90,000 by 6. So I'm getting 540,000. Okay, times what? R. So what will happen is that to get R, I have to divide both sides by 540. Okay, so that will be 32400 divided by 540,000. You see, if you divide, you get your R to be what? 0.06. Can you see it's giving us decimal here, which is the same as 6%. So if you multiply the 0.06 by 100, you get 6%. So that is that, right? Okay, let's continue. So we have other examples here. You can try them. All right, this is calculate the simple interest at the following principals, at the following rate, and at the following time. Okay, so we've solved similar ones like this. So you can just take a screenshot, try them, then you can let me have your answers in the comment section. Let's move on to compound interest. Let's look at compound interest. Okay, so we've learned something small about simple interest, which we said for simple interest, the rate is fixed, it doesn't change. So it's a fixed percentage on the principal, and also the interest for the year is the same. Okay, if year one interest 500, year two be 500, year three 500, and they are all on the original principal. With compound interest, it is slightly different. It is slightly different. What happened is that with compound interest, both the principal and the interest, they earn interest. So sometimes we call compound interest interest on interest, because the principal amount invested will earn interest, and the interest, the initial interest, will also earn interest. Okay, that's why we said compound interest is where the annual interest is based on both. Yeah, is based on both an amount, that's the initial amount, plus the interest what accrued to it. The interest accrued, okay, to this increases the amount in the account, and the interest is then charged on this new amount. This is called interest on interest. So as I said, the interest will earn interest and the principal will also earn interest. But if you look at the simple interest we did, all the interests were based on the initial what? Principal. So we assume that, or the assumption is that, or what happened in reality is that with simple interest, it's only the principal that's in the interest. The interest doesn't earn interest. Fine. Let's see how compound interest works. So let's get the example. A person borrows 10,000 at 10% annual compound interest to be repaid after 3 years. Calculate the interest and the principal at the end of the 3 years. So let me divide this into one. Let me divide this and let's see. Okay. So let's see how these things work, right? So let's see how the compound interest, how it works, right? Okay. Now we said, so this is how it will be. So interest for year one, interest, okay. Let's say for year one, okay. Calculate interest for year one, it will be 10% on the what, the 10,000. Okay. So 10% on the 10,000, it's for only 1 year. So you can make it times one, and that give you 1,000. So you see that amount at the end of year one, amount at the end of year one will be the principal, the 10,000 plus what, the 1,000, which gives us what, 11,000. Are you following? So 11,000 here is the amount at the end of year what, one. If you go to interest for year two, if you go to year two, interest for year two, if you go to year two, the interest will be what, 10%, not on the 10,000, but on the 11,000. So can you see the 1,000 interest will also earn interest now, and then the 10,000 principal will also earn what, interest, because we are not going to calculate interest only on the principal, the initial principal. We are calculating new interest on what, the old principal plus the old what, interest. That's why we are saying with compound interest we call it interest on what, interest, interest on interest. Don't forget that. All right. So you see that if you calculate 10% of 11,000, all right, you are going to have 1,100. So amount at the end of year two, amount at the end of year two will be the 11,000 plus what? Plus the 1,100, right? So 11,000 plus 1,000 what? 100. And that should give us 12,100. So 12,100 is a new amount now. Then you go to year three, interest for year three. Interest for year three. That will be 10%. Also on what, the 12,100. So I'm sure you are now seeing why we are saying with compound interest, the interest also earn interest. Because whenever we calculate the interest, we add it back to the principal to get a new principal. So the new principal now has all the old interest in them. So yeah, the interest will now also be what, earning interest. All right. Okay. So 10% of 12,100 will give us 1,210. So amount at the end of year three. So amount at the end will be equal to the 12,100 plus 1,210, and that will give us 13,300 and what, 10. 13,000, 13,300 and what, 10. 13,000. So you see, this is the amount at the end if it's compound interest. If this were to be simple interest, okay, the interest would have been 1,000 throughout. It would have been what, 1,000 for year one, 1,000 for year two, 1,000 for year three. So under simple interest, let's do some comparison. If you are doing simple interest, okay, the interest would have been what, 1,000 for year one, 1,000 for year two, 1,000 for year three, which would have been what, 3,000. That's how the interest would have been. But with the compound interest, okay, with the compound interest, year one is 1,000, year two is what, 1,100, year three is what, 1,210. So you see that when you sum the three, interest becomes what, 3,310 under the compound. Hope you're following. So I'm sure you now see the difference between simple interest and compound interest. All right, so the difference between this amount at the end, 13,310, and then the initial 10,000 here becomes what? The interest for the period. So this is how compound interest is. Both the principal and the interest will earn interest. But under simple interest, it's only the principal that earn interest. Okay. Let's continue. Now, initially, see, instead of going through this interest for year 1, year 2, year 3, what if the period is very long, like 20 years? You can't be doing this interest for year 1, calculate the interest, come and add it back to the principal. Then you get amount at the end. You go to year 2, calculate the interest and add it again. You see, you can't be doing that. So we have a formula for calculating compound interest, for calculating the future value. This 13,310, we have formula for calculating it. All right. What is the formula? That's what we call the compound interest formula. So that's what we have here. Okay. So there's it, the future value. That's what we have here. This is the future value is equal to what the present value into bracket 1 plus r raised to the power n, where this is the amount at the end of the period. In the previous example, it's just the 13,310, and this present value here is the principal. Okay, the principal, that's the 10,000 that was invested, the 10,000. Okay, the 10,000 here is the principal. So this is the principal. Okay, and this rates, this is the rate, and then this n is the number of period. So we can use that. So that's why we're saying future value, and I'm saying this future value is the amount at the end of the period is equal to this present value is what? The principal. Don't forget the 1 plus r. That's why I said amount is equal to, I use the p to denote the principal, where the interest will be what? The future value minus the present value, or the future value minus what? The future value minus the principal. Okay, so we said this is the formula, this is the compound interest formula, where with v is the future value, that's the amount at the end. The p here is the present value, or the principal. The principal you are making, the principal, what you are depositing into the bank account, or the initial loan you've gone for. R is the rates, and then n is the number of what? Periods. Okay, so we can call this formula. So looking at the question that we just solved, okay, this one here, we can use formula to compute it. So we can use formula to compute it, and that's what we have up here. So if you want to use the formula, we say the formula is the future value is equal to the principal, or the present value, 1 plus r raised to the power n. So we don't know the future value. Principal is the loan you borrow for. The loan you've gone for, the principal, 1 plus the rate is 10%, so 0.1. How many years? For 3 years. And if you do this, you get the 13,310. So you see, instead of going 111 as we did here to get the 13,310, you can use the formula. Okay, let's continue. It says if 100,000 Ghana cedis is invested at an annual rate of if 100,000 is invested at an annual rate of interest of 10% compounding annually, what is the amount after 3 years? That's A. B after 5 years, and C after 8 years. So here we can just use the formula straightforward, and not to do calculate the interest for year 1. Then come add it back to the principal to get the new principal for year 2. Then calculate the interest on it and add the interest back again. We can just use the formula straightforward. So we can use the compound interest formula. All right. So let me divide into 3. So let me do the A here. So we said the formula future value is the present value into bracket 1 plus r raised to the power what? N, right? So the future value, which we don't know, is the present value is the present value, or the principal, 100,000 into bracket 1 plus r is the rate, 10%, 0.1, and then E is 3 years, so raised to the power 3. Okay, So let me write everything. Let me not only write 10,000, but let me write everything. So we have the future value to be equal to the 100,000 into bracket 1 plus 0.1 raised to the power 3 years. So 100,000 into bracket. So if you do this, just take your time. Okay, just punch 100,000. Then 1 plus 0.1 will give us 1.1, the raised to the power 3. So if you're working on your calculator, you punch the 1.1 first. Then you do the raised to the power 3. Then when you get the answer, you multiply it by the 10,000. Okay. And that should give you um, 133,100. Okay. So the most important thing is the punching. Just know how to punch it. Okay. Yes, I'm trying to compute along, but the most important thing you get an understanding. All right. Okay, not necessarily the figures. Then B is what, 5 years. So that will be future value. So you see, if you look at this here, you can really find the interest here. Okay. So we can get the interest. The interest will be the difference between what? This amount, the 133,100, and then the 100,000, which is what? 33,100. Because the difference between the future value and the principal, okay, is the interest. Because you borrowed 100,000 and at the end you are paying 133,100. So here to be the same formula, okay, we have to put in the same formula, okay, the 100,000 interest, sorry, the 100,000 principal, then 1 plus interest is 0.1, that's 10 0.1, but this time raised to the power was 5. This raised to the power 5. Okay, so 100,000 plus 10% raised to the power 5, and that gives us what? 161051. Okay, so 161051, and this is the future value. So this is the amount that we are going to get after 5 years. And the difference between, so the interest will be the difference between what? The 161051 minus what? The 100,000. Okay. So the difference between the two is the interest. So 161. So 61051 is the interest. Okay. Yep, hope what I'm punching is right. Okay, I'm trying to punch along, but just get the understanding. If I just use the formula, okay, I just use the formula to get the amount after the 5 years. So it's the initial amount, which is the principal, the 100,000, then to bracket 1 plus the 10% raised to power 5. Okay, and I'm getting 161051. The difference between the 161, the difference between what? The 161051 and the initial amount, the 100,000, is the interest. C says 8 years. So that one future value will be the same 100,000 into bracket 1 plus 0.1 raised to the power 6. All right. So that is that raised to the power. Okay, sorry, it's raised to the power 8. Raised to the power 8. The last is raised to the power 8. And that gives us 214,359. 214,359. So this is a future value. So the difference between this future value and the initial principal becomes the interest. So the interest will be 214,359 minus what? The 100,000. Okay. So the difference between the two becomes the interest. So 214,359 and then the 100,000. Okay. Which I'm getting 114,359. So this is the interest for the period. All right. So that is it. So that's it with compound interest, and then how to use the compound interest formula, right? Now let's continue. Okay, then also you have to take note of this stuff. Let me see. Um, okay, so you also have to take note of this thing here. Um, yes, you have to take note of these things here. Compounding annually, compounding semi-annually, compounding quarterly, compounding what? Monthly, compounding daily. You can compound, we can have any of the compounding periods. Okay. We can have like the compounding periods. We can have so many of them. So when it is compounding annually, meaning we calculate the interest every year. So we do it once a year. Okay. If it's compounding semi-annually, it means it compounds every 6 months, so twice a year. Don't forget that'll be twice a year. Okay. It's compounding quarterly. Okay. Then we have to calculate the interest every three. Sorry, we have to do it 4 times a year, meaning every 3 months. We'll be doing it 4 times. So watch out. These things in bracket are very important. We'll be needing them. If it's compounding monthly, every month, then you have to do it 12 times in a year. So if you have 2 years, then it will be about 24 times because 1 year to compound twice. Sorry, 1 year to compound 12 times. So if it's compounding monthly, then 1 year it will compound twice, 12 times. Sorry, one year to compound 12 times. So 2 years to compound 24 times. If it is compounding daily, then we calculate the interest every day. So it will, you see, it will compound 365 times a year. So imagine you are doing the interest for 2 years. So that will be 2 times what the 365, which will give us what? 3730 or something. Yeah, 365 by what? 2, 730. I hope you are following. 365 by what? 2, which is 730. If so, you have to watch out. If it's compounding, let's say semi-annually. You say semi-annual means twice a year. So if you have 5 years, then the 5 times 2. So you see that to compound what 10 times. So you are going to have 10 times. Then the 10 is what you are going to use. Because we said it is compounding what? If it's compounding semi-annually, meaning it's compounding every 6 months. So it means that in a year it will compound twice. If you have 2 years, it will compound. Sorry, if you have 5 years, it will compound what 10 times. If you have 2 years, it will compound 4 times. Let's say we have an interest compounding every 3 months. If it's compounding every 3 months, then it will compound 4 times in a year. Okay, it will compound what 4 times. So if it's compound 4 times and we have 2 years, then it will be what 8 times. Because 1 year to compound 4 times, 2 years 8 times. Okay, so we'll note this. We'll be using them in computations. Let's end here. We have one. We'll go through these questions. The first one is compounding semi-annually, quarterly, monthly, daily for 4 years. And then if you come here, these ones we have to. It's not difficult though, but it's how long will it take for an investment to double in value if it earns 8% per annum compounding annually? How long will it take to triple at the same rate? So we'll go through these questions. Okay, in the next video, but let's end here. In the next video, we'll be solving more questions on compound interest, a bit complex questions where some will even require us to use okay, logarithms to compute our stuff, our rates, our time, and whatever. Right. So let's end here. Thank you for watching the video. If you're not subscribed, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with your friends. Also, CN Professional Institute is an accredited tuition provider for your professional qualification, your professional exams. So you want to be a chartered accountant, you want to be a chartered tax practitioner, you want to be a chartered economist, right? So your professional exams, you can register with CN Professional Institute. We have scholarship packages available to students, all right? So you can join us and study with us on a scholarship. The scholarship cover a scholarship. It covers your tuition as you prepare for your professional exams. Okay, so just contact us for your professional needs and to be an accountant to qualify easily within a short period of time as a chartered accountant, as a chartered tax practitioner. You can join CN Professional Institute. We take our time, we teach, we solve more questions, we prepare you adequately. All right, you pass on your first attempt. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.